Hey, it's Chris. Now, I know this title is a little bit clickbaity, but the thing is, I really have traded in my iPad for a Kindle and some AirPods and an Apple Watch. Kind of, sort of. Let me explain. This is iBooks on my iPhone. I also have it on my iPad. And this is a book that I've been reading called Human Nature by David Berlinski, one of my favorite authors. See, it's one of my goals to start reading more. There are a million books, I feel like, that I want to read, and I just haven't been making time for them. Or put differently, I've just been letting a bunch of other distractions eat up my time. Now, this is my iPad Pro. I love this iPad. It's an amazing work machine. For productivity, it's really been second to none for me. And like a lot of people, I thought, hey, an iPad is gonna be perfect for reading in bed. Well, not this iPad so much, but this iPad, the iPad mini, which is currently being used as a monitor for that camera, this is like the perfect size for holding in bed and reading. It's nice and light, it's small, and it gets the job done. But here's what I'm getting at. The iPhone and the iPad, honestly, they are great devices for reading on. I'm talking about the experience, iBooks, or articles, the text, it's great. But the iPhone and the iPad, they're also really great at other things, like surfing the internet, or watching videos, or checking social media, maybe playing some games. Like for me, when am I gonna read? Probably at night, after work hours, right? Probably right before bed, and it's way too easy to default to launching my favorite mobile game, Badland Brawl, which I've invested a lot of time and energy into, a little bit of money, and have some fun, but before I know it, I've whiled away the hours, and there's no more time left to read. So because the iPad and the iPhone are so great at so many things, that actually makes them not so great for being my main reading devices at night. What I'm saying is, they're really great at being distractions. Now, screen time, that was gonna be one of Apple's attempts at getting people to spend a reasonable amount of time on their devices. But you know just as much as I do that it's way too easy to just ignore screen time and the alerts and the data, the statistics altogether, right? And get back on with your game or social media or whatever else is becoming a big time suck. So that doesn't work for me. And I don't know what works for you guys. I'm sure there's 1,000 different ways to tackle something like this, where you want to do X, Y, or Z. It could be reading, or it could be spending more time with your family, whatever it is. And so what I've done is I've gotten a Kindle. It's a Kindle Oasis, actually. Now, I know for subscribers, this is probably a bizarre sight. And it's weird to hear me saying that as an iPad fan, as an Apple fan, someone's so deep into this ecosystem, and happily so, that I've gone all in on a Kindle. And I should just say, like a Kindle, it can't replace an iPad in basically any regard except for reading. That's the one function that they can basically both do. But that's kind of the point for me. So after work hours, I'm really making an attempt lately to stay away from my iPhone as much as possible, stay away from an iPad as much as possible, and really concentrate on just being connected to whatever goal or thing I purposefully want to do. And so actually that is where the Apple Watch and the AirPods I mentioned earlier come into play. Send a message to Biz Test Phone, get off that game. It's time to read. All right, this is an LTE Apple Watch. And what that means is I can send and receive text messages, and I can also make and take phone calls with this watch without my phone being around. My phone doesn't even have to be on. On top of that, I can come in and launch some music and have some background music while I'm reading, Set the mood, get the brain juices flowing properly. Or if I'm too tired to read, which sometimes is the case after a long day, I can also just use Audible and pop in an audiobook with my Apple Watch, and I can just listen to a book. And I've absorbed a lot of information over the last couple years through Audible in just that way. So is it some hyperbole to say that I've ditched the iPad for something else, for a Kindle in particular? Well, yes, I'm not getting rid of my iPad, but I'm trying not to use my iPad. So in that way, I am ditching it after work hours, if I can help it. For this guy. So I thought I'd actually talk a little bit about what an iPad user thinks about a Kindle. And actually, here's what happened. I asked for this for my birthday. It was my birthday recently, and told my wife, you know, one thing you give me is a Kindle. Because what do you get the tech guy that has all the tech already, right? Well, turns out something that's kind of a retro tech. This doesn't feel like futuristic tech to me, right? It feels like a step backwards, but that's kind of the point, right? I don't want a tablet. I just want a slate with some text on it that's at least connected to the internet so I can make some purchases and sync content. But other than that, it's pretty dumb. It's not a smart device. Well, not to just downplay it, you know, it's a cool piece of technology, but it's not smart in the way we think of a smartphone being smart, right? So this is all pretty new to me still, and I want to talk about the whole process, how it's going, what's been good, what's maybe not been so good. The first book that I've loaded up here is Bonhoeffer. I had a friend recommend this book, and so far I found it very interesting. Things are a little bit slow, even though it's the nicest model, the Kindle Oasis. When you press a button, there's a pretty noticeable delay, but at least the pages turn really quickly. That's nice. You know, this is an e-ink display, and so that's been very different for me to get used to. Again, I mean, I had an old Sony e-reader a long time ago. Never used the thing. But I would say I've been really impressed with how clear I'd say the text looks. You know, it has the very basics here of a reading experience. You can highlight, you can look stuff up in a dictionary, although when you do, then what it does is you have to load a dictionary, like go pick one out from the store and load it up. It's not just connected to the internet and gives you a definition like that. So that's a little bit weird, and the interface is a little bit weird compared to the iPad anyways. But I've highlighted a whole bunch of stuff, and that's really important to me because the whole point of reading this stuff for me is to find interesting stuff that I then want to remember. Which actually brings me to an interesting point. While this isn't an iPhone or an iPad, and therefore can't connect to nearly as many apps to do stuff with the text that you highlight, it does connect, at least, to Readwise, which is an app that I've covered recently in one of my app videos. And what it basically does is that it saves your highlights from the Kindle or from Instapaper or Pocket and puts them all together into a collection and then spits them back out at you either in a daily email or just through the app or the online service. And therefore, it helps you remember and retain that stuff that you've highlighted instead of just throwing it away into the abyss and never thinking about it again. So actually, if this didn't have Readwise, that would be so much less useful to me, the Kindle as a whole. Another present that came with this was this leather case, and that's been really nice too. I'd say it looks real good sitting on my nightstand. It really has been kind of weird. When I say this doesn't feel like new tech, it really isn't. It hasn't been updated for a long time. And you can see that as evidenced by this old USB port. Thankfully, I haven't had to charge it too much. It's lasted me for several days in between charges, which I can't say about the iPad or the iPhone, right? Those are things that I pretty much have to charge every day based on heavy usage or every other day for sure. I really like how light this is. It fits in the hand so nicely. This just makes for a great experience. I love that you can flip this over and use it with either hand. And then the page turning buttons, those work great. I guess I'm assuming that a lot of people who watch this channel and this content, especially because of all the iPad videos, maybe have never experienced a Kindle. Because if you were like me, you'd be like, why? Why ever own a Kindle if you're an iPad user or owner? I know there's some crossover. Some people out there are definitely going to have both. And that was me for a long time. But I said, I'm just gonna give it a chance, and I'm glad that I did. You can see how nicely this screen looks. It looks like you're just looking at a piece of paper, Except it's better because it still can do digital things. And that's something I've enjoyed too, is at night I can come in, I can go to settings, and I can do dark mode, and then it's a little bit easier on the eyes. The lights can be out in the room, but I can still read because this model has a built-in night light, so to speak. Because the e-ink is like real ink on real paper. If you don't have a light source lighting it up, you're not gonna be able to see it because there's no light shining through the screen. All right, so this is kind of a big experiment. And what you're probably wondering, if you've watched this far, is how's it been going? Has this actually been helping me reach my goal of getting some reading in? And it's only been like 3 weeks, maybe, but I would have to say, overwhelmingly, yeah. If I put my mind to it, and I know, at night, I'm gonna socially distance from my phone, from my iPad, and spend some time, if it's gonna be with the device, with mainly the Kindle and the Apple Watch and the AirPods. But yeah, I've definitely been getting more reading in, and plan to continue reading with this, getting more reading in. I've actually looked forward to spending some time with the dumb Kindle. And technically there's a web browser on here. I'm not even sure how to find it because I haven't gone looking for it. But, that's not tempting to hop on here and do some surfing around or anything. It's kind of nice to have a dedicated device that is meant for one thing, reading. This is a new habit that I plan on just ingraining within my life, in my nighttime routine, and I don't see myself ever stopping or wanting to stop. It's been really, really nice. Honestly, the only negative, and this is a weird thing to say too, that I feel here is that I almost get a FOMO feeling when I'm using something that doesn't feel connected to the rest of the world. And I'm cutting out the internet basically for the most part from my nighttime routine and replacing it with this. In that way, I feel like I'm kind of missing out on some of what's happening in the world. But on the same time, before I headed down this route of wanting to do more reading, I've been missing out on history, on biographies, on, books about tech. I really do just enjoy learning, and I haven't been getting enough of it, of the highbrow stuff. I've been getting too much lowbrow stuff, from social media and stuff. And it's a good break to dig in to an awesome book. I know I'm preaching to the choir to many people here, but if all you do is sit around and play video games or watch TV, or work constantly too, that's not good. You got to have some family time. You got to have some personal time where you're in your head and you're being more purposeful and not just wasting your time. All right, that's enough chit chat. Hopefully you guys got something out of this video. I know it's a little bit different. The iPhone 12 and Pro models, those are coming, I think tomorrow maybe, or the day after. So that content will be coming up soon. Lots of awesome Apple content, and also the podcast, that's coming up too. We're getting back into it, hitting it hard now that the move's over. So make sure that you guys are subscribed in your favorite podcast player. It's the Daily Tech After Party. Make sure we're connected on Twitter and Instagram. I'm at Daily Tech, spelled Daily Tekk, in both of those places. And I'll catch you in the next one. Later.